Hi, everybody, and welcome to ZTV Live. Today's Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020, and I'm so glad you're here. If anybody wants to, go ahead and give us a little shout out and a hello. Make sure that you can see us and hear us. I see a couple of likes, so that's always nice. And please feel free to join the conversation and say hello or add any questions that you want. Tonight we have Jane Collins with us with 10 questions for Stella Hanly of the Animal Welfare League of Alexandria. And we're going to get to Jane. Hi, Bridget. Thank you so much for saying hello. We're going to get to Jane and Stella in just a minute, but first we just have a couple of words from our sponsors. This episode of ZTV Live is brought to you by the Alexandria Pastry Shop with fresh corporate catering. They're in the Bradley Shopping Center on King Street, and the pastry shop has been creating irresistible pastries since 1988. They season, grill, and saute the best receptions and dinners in the metro area, and they offer gluten-free, sugar-free, and allergy-sensitive specialties. Visit alexandriapastry.com. And by Cafe 44, a stylish American eatery situated along the waterfront in North Old Town, Alexandria. Enjoy beautiful views of the Potomac River while dining on seasonal, fresh, and delicious salads, seafood, flatbreads, and more. They also offer curbside cocktails and a full menu via contactless curbside pickup or delivery. Visit cafe44.com. And by Riverbend Bistro on Fort Hunt Road in the Holland Hall Shopping Center in Alexandria. Riverbend Bistro has carry-out as well as indoor and outdoor seating, and they offer an array of local comfort foods, enticing entrees, refreshing salads, and daily specials. Visit riverbendbistro.com. If you'd like to become a sponsor of ZTV Live or advertise in the Zebra Press, we would love to hear from you. Give us a call, actually send us a private message on our Facebook page, or send an email to ads@thezebrapress.com. And we're back, and I'm going to go ahead and bring our guest host tonight, Jane Collins, on the screen. Hi, Jane. Welcome back.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm good. It's great to have you here, although it's a little bittersweet. I don't know I think the audience knows, but tonight is your last night with your wonderful 10 questions shows. You've brought so much to ZTV Live. We're so happy that you gave us the gift of your communication and your wonderful camaraderie, and I'm going to miss how organized and ready you always were for the shows.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And you guys have been so good to me. Thank you for this opportunity. And the purpose of this was to highlight community leaders and to let the audience, the viewing audience, know a little bit about them, not only what they do, but who they are. I think that's important, and maybe along the way you'll find something out about them that you would connect with and maybe want to support their organization or get more involved. Or, this whole idea was to get people engaged in Alexandria. So I hope it was successful. I will miss you. I will miss you all.
Thank you. I think it was very successful, and I know that you are you have so many things going on, but mostly your amazing nonprofit Herd. And I just wanted to give a shout out, and it's herdnova.org. They can always use donations. Jane does wonderful work through that organization. She hires professional artists, and they give marginalized women a chance to make their voice heard through art, through poetry, through writing, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful organization. In fact, it was my the night that I interviewed you the first time was my first time doing the interview and running the show, and you were so patient with me. So thank you again for your patience. But your resume is really amazing, Jane. You're a retired colonel for the United States Air Force. You're a communications consultant and coach with a master's degree in public relations and corporate communications from Georgetown. So bravo, and the ZTV, we were just really proud to have you on our team. And please know you can always come back. It's an open invitation.
Thank you. You will not get rid of me.
Okay,
I just
fantastic.
love you guys so much. So it's that old cliche. It's not goodbye. It's see you later.
Okay, it works. It works for this time. Who cares if it's a cliche? So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Stella Hanly on the camera. Hi, Stella. You're on the camera. Welcome to ZTV Live.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity.
Sure. Okay, Jane, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Okay, Susan, thank you. And hi, Stella. How are you again?
Hi, Jane. How are you?
Good. I said again because we did have a online rehearsal earlier today just to make sure everything worked, and as you can see, it does. So thank you for what you do. Everyone, I think, is so interested in animals, especially now during COVID. So, as you know the rules, we're going to have the magic bowl of questions right here. I'll be picking out questions. I'm going to alternate between, personal and professional. And when you're ready, I'm ready.
I'm ready. Go ahead.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
do it. So the first question is, so the obvious question, how has COVID-19 affected your operations there?
Well, I think what's interesting about the AWLA is that there's so many facets to our organization. So for our animal services team, who work on cruelty, neglect, animal emergencies, wildlife emergencies, honestly, their operations have not changed. They're here, they're first responders. So even whenever we had to close our doors to the public, they were here every single day, and they still do. And they are considered first responders, as I just mentioned as well. So that part of our organization really hasn't changed with COVID, and we're just so proud of our officers for being here every single day and responding to the 1,250 calls that they've received since April 1st. But the other side of our organization, our adoptions, our humane education, our community programs, that has changed immensely since COVID. Whenever the health department said that there was community spread in Alexandria, that was our cue to decide we need to keep our staff safe. So that was the day that we pulled back to a skeleton crew, and we actually stopped adoptions. On that same day, I said to our adoptions manager, our director of ops, our communications team, figure out how to do virtual adoptions. And within 5 days, we were up and running again, doing virtual adoptions, so still providing that service to the community. Virtual adoptions is very interesting, and we did that until July 5th. That was the only way that we did adoptions, so it was contactless. People met the animals through Zoom, and then the first time they met them in person was when they actually came to pick them up. It was kind of amazing how much people took to them. And even though now we are back offering adoptions by appointment and in person, we still offer virtual as well. It's about a 70%, 30% mix between the two. And what's been wonderful about virtual is that we can get adopters from anywhere in the country. And so we're having people ask to meet animals from Pennsylvania who live in Baltimore. And so it's still working really well. And then the other huge aspect that had to ramp up very, very quickly was our community programs department. So what people maybe don't know about us is that while we are a shelter for homeless animals and a place where people can bring their animals if they can no longer take care of them, a very big aspect of what we do is helping people with their own animals, so the animals in their home. With the pandemic, so many people lost their jobs, and our community programs department is focused solely on owned animals. So making sure if animals have a loving home, but maybe their family is going through some sort of financial hardship or emergency, that we can provide the resources to keep that animal with their family. And our community programs department received so many requests for help, starting as soon as the pandemic shut down the restaurants, that with the restaurant workers especially. So since April 1st, we have distributed over 7,000 pounds of pet foods and supplies to our community. We actually just received a grant from Mars to help us with vet care for owned animals, because that is not something that we typically have in our budget. So we had to look elsewhere because it's not in our business to take away animals if they have a loving home. And so we want to do everything in our power to keep them with their families if we can. So our community programs department is a mighty team of two. And ever since everything shut down, one or both of them has been here every single day, answering the calls from our community for their owned animals, for their own pets. And I just couldn't be prouder of our team, how much that they've risen to this occasion and made sure that we're here and remain a resource, even though we're all living in this crazy time.
Your team has been awesome. And there's just, okay, let's make the show 3 hours long because there's just so much, so many questions that came out of what you just said. But believe it or not, we're a third of the way through. So,
okay. I'll be quiet.
That was so much good information, though. So it all works. So you must own pets, right? How many animals do you own?
Right now, I have one old dog. He has made it very clear that he would like to be the only pet in the home. So we are honoring his wishes. He's almost 15 years old, and he is the best dog in the world. And his name is Rupert.
His picture's up.
His picture is up. Yeah, believe it or not, we did a DNA test for Rupert. I would have bet money that he was a Dachshund Beagle. He's actually a rat terrier Dachshund, so which is probably where he gets his feisty personality from. But we just love him so much.
Yeah, well, he's really cute.
He is
really cute, and I bet he's kept you company during all of this too.
He has. He used to come to work with me every day. But since he's gotten older, he's very vocal. And so luckily, my husband's working from home now. And so Rupert's able to help him as he's working from home. So yeah, he's a great dog.
Oh, well, speaking of pets, you have something called the Pet Pantry, and Susan's going to put a couple of pictures up about that. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so our Pet Pantry, we started it actually last year, and it was in response to the number of people who were reaching out for help with food. And it's an extension of a program that we have in coordination with Senior Services of Alexandria, our Animeals program. So Animeals was started quite a few years ago for seniors who receive Meals on Wheels from Senior Services. If they have pets, we will provide the pet food. And that was what Animeals is and was. And then from Animeals, it expanded beyond seniors, and that became our Pet Pantry. The Pet Pantry we never believed would have been, nobody obviously predicted that we'd be living in this year that 2020 has been, but thank goodness we had the Pet Pantry already started and ready to go. So whenever COVID hit, we were able to just make people know far and wide that we have this. But not only do we have the Pet Pantry for owned pets in the community, but as I speak, we're actually doing our very first drive-up vaccine clinic. In previous years, we had gone out to the community to lower income neighborhoods, brought veterinarians, brought food, and we provided vaccines on site on these neighborhoods. Obviously, with COVID, we haven't been able to do that, so we've had to pivot a little. And today we're doing a drive-through, so it's a contactless, or drive-up, I should say, not really drive-through. So we have volunteers take the animals from the car and bring them in to get vaccinated in the shelter, and then out they go again, and off they go. So we wouldn't be able to do our Pet Pantry or provide so much help without the donations from our community. And it really is, whenever we put out, for example, at the start of COVID, one of the things that people were asking for was cat litter. Cat litter is pretty expensive, and we didn't have enough to give away, and we put it out on social media. We now have so much cat litter, it's amazing. So our community supports us. Whatever we ask for, they will typically help. But if you or anybody you know needs help with your pet, if you need food or vaccinations or basic vet care, if you can email community@alexandriaanimals.org, we'll be able to give you whatever help we can.
Oh, thank you. And I'm going to bet here that Mary Wadlin, the publisher of The Zebra, is actually putting that email in the comment box right now. She's really good about doing that. And Susan said, yeah, she just did. So good.
Thank you.
But yeah, one thing about Alexandria, we were talking about this before the show, it's just amazing how so many nonprofits have just pivoted, which is kind of an overused word, but they really have just turned on a dime to accommodate people and animals in need during this crisis. And it's just been wonderful to watch the community come together. Um, and I know you love what you do. And so my next question, though, is if you didn't have to worry about money, if you had unlimited money, what would you do with your life?
I would, if I had unlimited money, I would, of course, make sure the Animal Welfare League of Alexandria was well taken care of. But
And
after
third,
that,
second, right?
yeah. But after that, I would actually love to have a sanctuary for old horses. So,
Oh,
yeah, I'm from Ireland, and I grew up with horses. And whenever horses reach the end of their life, the end of their usefulness, it's very tragic what happens to horses. So that's something that I would love to be able to help with.
oh, what a wonderful idea. There are horse sanctuaries in this area, I think, but
All
you
right,
can always
yeah,
use more, right?
yeah, or help those ones, I guess, if I had unlimited money. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what a generous thing to do. Well, I want to ask you now, and this is again going back to pets, what should somebody do now to make sure their pet is cared for in an emergency?
Well, there's two different types of emergency that people should be prepared for. COVID made us all realize that there is a possibility that you could get very sick quickly and be hospitalized. So, in that emergency, it's really good to have identified somebody who can take care of your pet, just in case you ever have to go into hospital or you're incapacitated in some way. So that's something that we would always say to people, do you know somebody who will be able to help you? We have a crisis care program here. So if people are made homeless or, are victims of domestic violence, we can temporarily shelter their pets here and we'll give them back once they get on their feet. But it's a really good idea for people to have a person that they can turn to if that were to happen. And then, of course, then there's the other type of emergency, which would be a natural disaster, such as a hurricane or something like that. And what we would recommend is that you have like a go bag ready to go for your pet. So this is kind of an example of one that we call a pet emergency supply bag. So there's things like your rabies certificate. If you're looking for your pet to be housed in a shelter, they're going to look for proof of vaccinations. One of the first things that they look for. And if your pet is on any sort of medication, anything like that, you can put all that in this bag. And then, of course, about a week's supply of food is really good to have as well on hand, just to make sure that you're ready to go. This is one thing that I should really practice what I preach, but for dogs, it's really good for your dog to have to be crate trained, because it's likely if they do have to go into a shelter that they will be in a confined crate just until the emergency is passed. So if this is something that your pet is not used to, that's going to be very stressful for them. My dog, it will be very stressful for him. So it's definitely something that I always recommend for other people, but I haven't done for myself. So.
Oh, well, thank you. And what good information you've got there. Thanks for sharing that. And I want to tell the viewers now it's 7:19. If you have any questions that you want to ask Stella, just type them in the chat box. We may ask them on air, or we may save them and ask them for our 5-question follow-up, which will be posted on the Zebra website in the next couple of days. So keep the questions coming. And my next question for you, Stella, and you may have already answered this with your last question, but when you were young, what did you want to do when you grew up?
Well, I definitely thought I was going to be a professional show jumper. That did not happen. I don't think I realized quite how expensive things are until I got older. So I knew I would really wanted to do something with animals, but there wasn't really the opportunity for me to do that at home in Ireland unless I'd wanted to be a veterinarian. I knew I would. And I knew I did not want to be a veterinarian. So I went a different path. But yeah, I knew I always wanted to do something with animals. I don't think in my wildest dreams that I would have ever imagined that I would be the executive director of such a wonderful organization, and I feel very lucky. But to have to to now be fulfilling those dreams I had when I was younger.
So you are truly living your dream, right? You just need unlimited money now.
I just need unlimited money now. Yes. Yeah, I do think I'm very lucky. It took me a while to get here. I did not start in the animal welfare world. I actually started off my career as a software developer. So quite a big change for me to be here where I am today. But I'm definitely glad that I made the change and I followed my dream. And it's definitely something that I would say to people. That it is true that if you love what you do, it does not feel like it's a job. And what I've found too is that there's a lot of people in animal welfare that started off differently and then decided that animals were really their passion and they were going to make that work, to do something to make it their career.
Well, question one of 5 more questions is going to be, how did you leap from computer software developer to animal welfare? But that will come out in a couple of days. What I want to ask you now, and this is a 2-for question, so it's a long one. What is your biggest challenge as the executive director of the Animal Welfare League of Alexandria? And as part of that, how do you want to grow the organization?
I think the biggest challenge for me is getting rid of any misconceptions that people may have about animal shelters and what we do. And also the people who utilize our resources, that they are not people who should be judged. They're doing the right thing by asking for our help. We're the professionals at rehoming animals. That's why we're here, and sometimes it's better for the animal to be rehomed than to be in a situation that's not the best for them. I think people have misconceptions about the shelter. They're like, I say, oh, I could never go there. It's just too sad. And that always makes me sad because we're not sad. We're a wonderful, happy, joyful place. Majority of our animals get placed in wonderful, loving homes. We have phenomenal staff who love their animals. We have beautiful enclosures for the animals. The dogs get walked multiple times a day. They have enrichment, everything that you can think that we could possibly do to make their stay with us as pleasant as possible. That's what we do. And I think that that's a misconception that I would love for people to know about us and about the shelter, that it's not sad. And we would love, when COVID is over, for you to come visit and see what we do here and see that it's a happy place where animals are really taken care of.
Okay, well, great. Well, you heard that, everybody. As soon as the shelter opens, stop by for a visit, stop by and volunteer, stop by to help, stop by to donate. So, and my question for you is, what is one thing about you that would surprise people aside from the fact you started your career as a software developer?
I think people are always surprised by that. That's probably one of the biggest things that they're surprised by. That I have an undergraduate degree in mathematics is always a shock to people as well. But then on the other hand, I am a huge reality TV junkie. Anything that's on Bravo TV, I'm your woman. So.
And which one's your favorite?
Every housewife show, everything that's on Bravo, I adore, as well as the challenge on MTV. I said it.
So what do you like better, the Kardashians or Botched?
I actually don't watch E. So I just watch Bravo. Yeah.
Oh,
so
right.
I don't watch the Kardashians. I do. I must say I draw the line at the Kardashians. But the Real Housewives of New York, that's my number one fave.
Well, there was or still is a show called The Real Housewives of Potomac, filmed here in D.C. So maybe we'll get you on there. Yeah. If things get a little slow at the animal welfare shelter, I didn't say that quite right. Maybe we'll get you on the show.
Yeah, I don't know that my life is quite as glamorous enough, but yeah.
So what is one thing about the Animal Welfare League of Alexandria? There, I said it right. The people don't know.
They don't know that we are not just cats and dogs. We are what's called an open access shelter. So that means that for any animal in the city of Alexandria that needs our help, we will be there to help them. So in our shelter, we've had pigs, we've had chickens, we get a lot of reptiles, birds, everything that you can think of. If there is a resident in the city of Alexandria who needs our help with their animal, we will help them, and it's not just dogs and cats.
Well, what's the weirdest animal that's ever shown up?
One morning we arrived and there was a barrel full of tegu lizards outside the shelter. Tegu lizards, if people don't know, I definitely didn't know what they were until that morning. They're very large reptiles. They're stripy, like rings around their bodies. They can grow to 5 or 6 feet.
How big were these?
Pardon?
How big were these?
The biggest one was probably 4.5 feet.
And Susan has a picture of one of them up right now. They look, when I first saw the picture, they look like, a gecko you could put in your hand. These were 4.5 feet, and you had a barrel of them.
Well, yeah, they were. They were really big. There were 2 that were smaller, and then there was one that had to be by itself in what we call our wildlife room. It was so big, we didn't have an enclosure that was big enough for it.
Were you scared?
I was scared for sure. Yeah, they definitely looked like dinosaurs, and the big one especially looked like he thought I might be tasty. So,
so what did you do with them?
So we had to reach out to specialists because we want to make sure that we are giving all our animals the best that we can possibly provide, and obviously our shelter is not set up for tegu lizards. So Reptiles Alive took 2 of them. Blue Ridge Animal Sanctuary, I believe is what it's called, took another one. And then there was a tegu lizard expert in DC, and he adopted one of them as well. He's actually an animal services officer in DC, and he adopted one as well.
Who would imagine?
That was 4 of them. Thank goodness. It was a small cheer when they left the building.
So we've talked way more about lizards tonight than I ever imagined. Is there anything else you want to say about lizards before we move on?
I think I've said enough about lizards, probably.
And I think I've heard enough. So next question. So what life experience do you think has strengthened you the most?
Well, this is probably a little deep, but I grew up in Northern Ireland and lived through the Troubles.
Oh.
So I think just growing up in that environment, I was born after the Troubles started, so it was the only thing I knew. And so I think growing up in that environment makes you look for opportunities where you can find them, makes you very strong, makes you realize that the world isn't always a super happy place, and that's the way it is. So I think that has definitely made me a very strong person who's self-reliant and resilient. So that has probably been the experience that made me who I am.
Have you ever thought about writing a book?
I don't think anybody would read it. I don't think anybody would read it.
I would read it. Susan would read it.
Yeah, I have one last question on lizards. A question from the audience from our own Lucella O'Flaherty. Are lizards legal as pets in Alexandria?
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you, Lucelle, for the question.
Yeah, thank you. So how can people volunteer or volunteer from home right now? How can people help you?
Well, we're so lucky. We have a huge volunteer corps. I know I quoted this statistic to you earlier, but in 2019, our 500 or more than 500 volunteers donated 24,802 hours to the organization, wow, which is the equivalent of 12 full-time staff. Wow. So we always say that we would not be able to do what we do without our volunteers. we provide the best we can to our animals with the resources we have, but the volunteers add that little cherry on top by taking them on field trips and, bringing extra treats and all those kind of things that volunteers can do. I think it was one of the saddest things with COVID was that in order to keep our staff safe, we had to say we weren't going to allow volunteers into the building. And I think that was one of the saddest days for all of the staff. Because we have such a thriving volunteer corps, it was very quiet without the volunteers here. We definitely miss them a lot. But using that word pivot again, we pivoted to find everything that we could possibly think of that they could help us from home. One of the first things that we asked volunteers to do was make us masks and face coverings. We didn't have enough PPE to allow our staff to wear disposable masks. And so within 2 days of us putting out the call to ask for masks for our staff, we had literally hundreds show up, and we are just so grateful. So from there, once we got the masks, and our volunteer manager, who is very creative and resourceful anyway, started thinking of everything that the volunteers could do from home. So they've been updating animal bios on the website. They have been making treats. They've been making adoption folders. They've been taking photographs. Everything you can think of. They've been doing our gardening, which has been great as well, because everything's outside. So then starting on July 5th, we have allowed a limited number of volunteers back in the building, 1 cat, 1 dog on any given shift. And it's been just phenomenal to have them back. Our drive-through clinic, I actually can look out my window right now and see we have about 10 volunteers helping with that as well. So again, we wouldn't be able to do that without our volunteers. Typically, we run volunteer orientations twice a month. With COVID, we are still taking volunteer interest, but we're not doing the orientations just now. So hopefully, we will be able to switch and start inviting new volunteers again soon. The other way that you can volunteer with the organization, though, is to foster. So those are volunteers as well. They will keep animals for a short amount of time. And you can get on our website and you will see all the instructions to become a foster volunteer. And that's definitely something you can do now.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, just go to alexandriaanimals.org. There's a link there for fostering. There's a link there for volunteering. Stella, as always, this went way too fast. We have time for one more question, then we have to sign off.
I do have one question from the audience that Bobby Mahoney, thank you so much for your question. Is it true that 1 in 4 residents of Alexandria is a dog?
I think Bobby Mahoney can probably answer that question better than me. So I don't know if you know who Bobby is, but he's been in Alexandria longer than I have. But thank you for that question, Bobby. But yeah, we have an awful lot of dogs in Alexandria.
Yes, it's a very dog-friendly town, I have to say. It's a wonderful thing. You can't walk down the street without seeing people leaving dog bowls out for any dog to have a little drink of water.
Yep. Love the costumes.
Mm-hmm.
So my last question to you, and this is the sign-off signature question of this whole 10 questions with Jane Collins, is from your vantage point, what can Alexandrians do to make our community better and stronger?
So from my vantage point, from what I see every day as an animal welfare professional, one of the things that we always say to people is where there's an animal in trouble, there's typically a person in trouble. And so we would very much see our community to be non-judgmental, to understand people are coming from different backgrounds, different levels of education. And the diversity is what makes us stronger. And I think that the human-animal bond in Alexandria is incredibly strong, but we need to try to understand the different perspectives of others as we go about our day-to-day lives.
Yeah. What good advice. Thank you. Stella, this has been so much fun. I'm so glad you came on the show. Thank you. Thank you for all the advice you shared. Thank you on behalf of all the pet owners in Alexandria for all the work that you do.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate getting to tell everybody a little bit more about the work of the AWLA.
Okay, Susan, back to you.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Stella. It was wonderful to meet you. And I'll repeat what Jane said. That was great advice for that last question. If you see a pet in trouble, it means that there is likely a human in trouble. I never thought of that before, and that's so insightful. So thank you so much for giving everybody a little bit something else to think about. And Jane, I just can't say enough. I'm going to miss you, and good luck with everything. And I can't wait to have you back on the show again.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay, well, that's going to do it for us tonight on ZTV Live. Thank you so much for your audience participation, for your questions, for listening, for your likes and your loves. We like and love it all. Tomorrow night is the Virginia Amos Show, and Virginia's guest is Joan Honeyman, who's a landscape architect, and she'll be discussing sustainable gardening, among other issues. So please tune in tomorrow night at 7 o'clock for the Virginia Amos Show. Until then, we will see you, and hopefully you'll have a good evening and a good day tomorrow. Remember to be kind and also to be the good news in someone's life.